Attention bowlers, we're going to get started. Welcome back to Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire for another thrilling Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour match. I'm Steve Kelly on the call. This is Steve Kelly versus Donovan Pavlik. This match format is 5 strings and 14 points up for grabs. 2 points per string, 4 for total pinfall, with ties splitting points. Donovan Pavlik starts out. He's not on the head pin, he drops 7. He's on the 1, the 8, and the 10 pins for a spare bid. Pavlik fires on the head pin, and it bounces off the sidewall and doesn't collide with the 8 or the 10. Rolls out of play. It is good as always to have you along with us. This match was originally live streamed on Saturday, December 14th, 2024. For those interested, I'd like to highlight a few things. This broadcast should have subtitles and live captioning enabled, so if you do enjoy this feature, please feel free to enable it in the controls below. If you're watching this broadcast on YouTube, the transcript feature will also likely be available. And next, throughout the match, I'll describe the play-by-play action and provide up-to-the-minute scoring to the best of my ability. Keep an eye on the unofficial scoreboard on your screen. It's here for the benefit of the broadcast, while the bowlers maintain their own separate book records. Scores may be subject to review or correction. And for this match in particular, Steve Kelly's scores will be updated at a bit of a less frequent rate because Steve Kelly was bowling and Steve Kelly was unable to update the scoreboard and bowl at the same time. And the same goes for the head pin and split indicators. So just keep that in mind. Donovan Pavlik misses his spare bid, but he'll pick up a 10 box. 18 after 2 for Donovan Pavlik. Talking about Donovan Pavlik, he has a season record of 34-22 after 4 matches played. That's a 1.55 win-loss ratio. At home, he's 14-0 with 1 match played. When he's away, he's 20-22 with 3 matches played. Donovan Pavlik's season average is 117.05. His home average is 122.2, and his away average is 111.9. With a high single of 136 and a high series of 611. Donovan Pavlik has thrown 15 strikes, 46 spares, and 51 tens this season so far. Donovan Pavlik just missing the spare, leaving the 7 pin. He fires for a 10 box, caps the wood, doesn't get the 7. He'll take a 9 box for 27 after 3. Donovan Pavlik has 2289 seasonal total pins. He's 2nd place in Class A North Division 3, and in the wild card, he's 9th place currently. Pavlik fires, has a bit of a stutter step on his release. On the head pin, drops a late falling 7. The 3, the 6, and the 10 are left on the deck. There's a piece of wood that is rolling up right behind the 3 pin. Should be pretty decent for some buffering or psychological comfort as Donovan Pavlik releases, but he's just a little bit off to the right and connects with the 10 pin and the 10 pin only. Pavlik for the 10 box with an 8 box guarantee. It'll be a 10 box for Donovan Pavlik. That's 37 after 4 with that 10 box. Donovan Pavlik has the number 9th highest ACST average spare fill at 6.76. The number 3 ACST North highest average spare fill, also at 6.76. And the number 7 class average spare fill at 6.76. And that's a right side half wrister for Donovan Pavlik, who punched out the 3 and the 9. For the spare bid, he's just a little bit off to the left of the head pin. What's left on the deck are the 1, the 5, the 6, and the 10 pins. Pavlik's final ball of the first half of the first game of 5. He'll take everything out and clean up very nicely for a 10 box. He's now at 47 after 5. 2 headpin shots and 1 split for Donovan Pavlik.
Yes.
We're now going to say hello to Steve Kelly for the first time today. Steve Kelly carries a record of 47-23 with 5 matches played. That's a 2.04 win-loss ratio. At home, he's 15-13 with 2 matches played. Away, he's 32-10. Steve Kelly's season average has been 118.05 so far. His home average 114.1. His away average 122. Steve Kelly fires. He's just a little bit off the headpin to the left. Drops 5. The 1, 3, 6, 8, 10 are on the deck. And Kelly's second ball is on the head pin, and it takes everything out. Runs down the 4 horseman right side and the sleeper pin for a spare. Steve Kelly is at 10 after 1, plus a bonus. Steve Kelly's high single, again, is 156. His high series is 659. He has 15 strikes, 79 tens, 79 spares, and 60 tens. And Steve Kelly misses the head pin on the follow-up shot. Will fill his spare with 6, leaving the 1, the 2, the 8, and the 9 on the deck. Steve Kelly's perfect box percentage is 61. And Kelly is off target to the left. Misfires. No mark. Steve Kelly has 2,971 seasonal total pins. He's currently first place in Class A North Division 4 and second place in the overall wildcard seedings. That's a 7 box for Steve Kelly. 23 after 2 is the current score update. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 18 after 2. Presently, Steve Kelly has a list of superlatives, including the number 8 ACST high single at 156, the number 4 high series at 659, and meanwhile, that's a 4-pin spread eagle for Steve Kelly. The 2, the 3, the 4, the 6, the 7, and the 10 are left on the deck. For the spare bid, Steve Kelly picks the right side, takes out the right half of the eagle, and a pin comes over and takes the 2 pin. Leaves the 4 and the 7 for a 10 box with a guaranteed 8 box minimum. Kelly fires, and it's a 10 box. Takes out the 4 and the 7. Steve Kelly is presently at 33 after 3. Steve Kelly has the 6th highest ACST perfect box percentage at 61. The number 6th best ACST stats in terms of the fewest average pins left at 30.8. And Kelly fires just slightly to the right of the head pin on the 3-6 pocket, leaves the 1, 2, 4, 7 on the deck. And Kelly runs down the 4 horseman left side for another spare. That's 43 and a ball after 4 for Steve Kelly. We are at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire, located on Amherst Street on this Saturday morning, just a little before noontime. Steve Kelly's on the head pin, but the bins dance around, and he's left with a 5 fill and a split. That's the 7, 10, 4, 5, 2 on the deck with no wood. Kelly fires for the spare, and he'll take the spare. He'll run down the left side pile of pins and the 10 pin for 2 spares in a row for 58 and a bonus after 5. Those scores are being keyed in visually now. So 58 and a bonus for Steve Kelly after 5, and Donovan Pavlik sits at 47 after 5. 3 marks in the first half for Steve Kelly in the first game. Puts him at an early lead. Donovan Pavlik for the first time on lane 7 today. He's not on the head pin, but he drops 7. That's the 179 on the deck. And Pavlik fires. He's on the head pin, but it collides with a piece of wood and doesn't take the pins in the back row. Pavlik's now shooting for a 10 box with an 8 box minimum. And Pavlik will take the 7 out for a 9 box in the 6th frame for 56 after 6. Pavlik is 2 for 6 on the head pin so far, with only 1 split. It's always nice to see the split number be very low, especially when you have a high amount of head pin shots. Donovan Pavlik drops 9, leaves the 4 on the deck. It was a fast-moving first ball. Could have been a hammer in most other scenarios, but sometimes that's just how Candlepin goes. And anyways, Donovan Pavlik just misfired a little bit to the left. He doesn't take the 4-pin. And on third ball, he will connect with a 4-pin for a 10 box. That puts him at 76 after 8. Pavlik on lane 7. He fires his first ball. It's on the head pin again. He's left with a split, the 5, 8, 10. There's a piece of wood across the 5 and the 8. And one piece of wood ahead of the 10. I would play the wood in front of the 5 and the 8. And Pavlik does just that, but he doesn't kick over to the 10 pin. Had to play it at more of an angle. Pavlik fires for the 10 box, takes the 10 pin out for a 10 box. That puts him at 86 in 9. Excuse me, 76 after 8. Donovan Pavlik. He has the 15th highest Class A average at 117.05. He's second in A North Division 3 and is the number 9 seed in the Class A North wildcard. Pavlik misses to the left of the head pin on the first ball. Second ball was a better remedial shot, but he's left with the 1 and the 3 on the deck. Pavlik fires and will complete it for a 10 box. He's at 86 after 9. Donovan Pavlik is off to the right of the head pin this time. He takes a few pins out, but leaves the majority of the pins standing. Pavlik's second ball is a full punch down the center. Now he's left with the 7, the 9, the 4, and the 2 on the deck. For the third ball, 10 box attempt, he'll take everything but the 9 for a 9 box. He'll finish the first game with 95. No marks for Donovan Pavlik. So 6 10 boxes for Donovan Pavlik with that 95, but no marks and no lucky breaks. Steve Kelly now comes up to the approaches of lane 7 to continue onwards. He has 3 marks, and he's currently at 58 and a fill in the 5th. Kelly fires on lane 7. First ball, oddly light hit despite being on the pocket. It's a 4 fill. He's left with the 7, 8, 9, 10, 5, 6. Can you believe that's a headpin shot and technically a split? Kelly's thinking long and hard about the shot, waiting for the wood to settle. Playing the wood in an angle is the best bet. And Kelly tries that, but he leaves the 8, the 9, and the 10 on the deck, oddly enough. Not a lot of pin action on lane 7 in particular right now. For the 10 box, Kelly plays the wood, takes 1, leaves 2, leaves the 9, the 10 for an 8 box. That puts Kelly at 70 after 6. We are at Leda Lanes today, opened in 1959, roughly 64 years ago. Leda Lanes is a family-owned and operated candlepin bowling center located in Nashua, New Hampshire. All wood approaches, all wood lanes with sensor-based automatic scoring. The software is known as BES by Cubica AMF. It's a headpin shot and a split for Steve Kelly. He's left with the left side setback, the 5 and the 7. And Kelly punches out the 5 with the 7 remaining on the deck. That shot is difficult to convert. Kelly for the 10 box. Plays the wood and the pin wiggles and it falls eventually. So with that 10 box, he is at 80 after 7. It's one of those pins where it seemed like it wasn't going to fall, and given the awkward amount of time it took for it to fall, it almost seemed like it wasn't going to. But it did. 3 boxes to go for Kelly, currently at 80 after 7. Opening pitch of the 8th frame is on the head pin, but not much to show for it. It's a split. He's left with the 4, 6, 7. Excuse me, the 4, 6, 10. Kelly fires on the right side, only punches the 6, leaves the 4 and the 10. No wood. Effectively has to pick a stick. The 4 pin is the most optimal shot. But Kelly's ball tails to the right, and he'll take an 8 box for 88 after 8. Leda Lanes features 36 lanes, 18 on each side of the house. The side we're reviewing today are lanes 1 through 18, which I believe is from Winnipeg's Gate City Bowl. These lanes, I believe, were donated from a different bowling alley that used to be on the Daniel Webster Highway in Nashua in the 1980s, late 70s, early 1980s. Kelly has a split. That's the 5, 6, 10. A lot of splits so far for Kelly in particular this game. 7, 6 so far. Kelly takes out the 5 and leaves the 6 and the 10. And Kelly will take the last 2 for a 10 box. That puts him at 98 after 9. Leda Lanes was home of the 2024 Men's International Candlepin Championships back in November of 2024. As Steve Kelly fires in the head pin, lumberyard of wood down there. The 3, 6, 7, 9, 10 are on the deck. There's a bunch of wood in front of the 3 pin specifically. Playing that wood should push everything down. Kelly releases, and everything goes eventually. The 9 pin falls last. That's a spare for Steve Kelly, currently at 108 and a bonus in the 10th. He will take the first game. Steve Kelly has a guaranteed 2 points minimum this match. 1 ball left to go in this first game for the fill. Steve Kelly fires, and it's going to be another head pin pocket shot. It's going to be a 7 drop. He leaves the 7, 10, 4 for a 7 fill. And that will be a 115 first game for Steve Kelly. Up by 20 over Donovan Pavlik's 95. That will be the story of the first game. Steve Kelly went 7 for 10 on the head pin and 7 for 10 on the splits. A 1-to-1 ratio. Donovan Pavlik went 4 for 10 on the head pin and only got 2 splits. Steve Kelly so far totaled 22 in terms of the fill totals, averaging 5.5 per mark. But we're going to move on to the next game. Immediately, Donovan Pavlik fires on lane 8. He's on the head pin. He leaves the 7, 8, and the 6. And here's full screen account of the scores. And Donovan Pavlik plays the 6, 7, 8, and he takes it.
Oh, you got that?
A fantastic shot. And you can hear me in the background even exclaiming because even I looked away for a split second thinking he wasn't going to get it, but my goodness, he got it. Donovan Pavlik opens with a spare. 10 after 1 and a bonus. Pavlik fires. He's on the head pin for the spare fill, and will it be a strike? The 7 pin nearly goes more than diagonal, but somehow stands itself back up. So instead of a strike fill, it's going to be a 9 fill for Donovan Pavlik. And he plays the 7, and he'll take the 7 for 2 spares in a row. That's 29 and a bonus for Donovan Pavlik. After a bit of a lazy, sleepy warm-up first game, Donovan Pavlik has really come alive here with 2 spares in a row. Perfect so far in the second game. Pavlik, the first pitch. It's going to be a 9 fill with a late falling 6 pin. The 7 pin once again is the last pin standing.
Yeah.
So with that 9 fill, he's at 38 after 2. Pavlik fires, and he plays the wood, but the wood was a little bit too far out, and it deflects the ball and spins away from the 7 pin. Pavlik will take the 7 pin for a 10 box. That puts him at 48 after 3. That's a great opening stanza for Donovan Pavlik. But 2 to go before he sits. Being at nearly 50 in the 3rd box is a great position to be in candlepin bowling. Leda Lanes has a bar called Kegler's Den, which offers an impressive number of taps, drinks, food, entertainment, karaoke, and plenty of other things. And that's Donovan Pavlik with a split. The 5 and the 10 are on the deck with no wood. That's the right side setback. And Pavlik will just miss the 5 pin to the left by a few inches. Third ball for the 10 box. He'll miss the 5 pin to the right by a few inches for an 8 box. That puts Donovan Pavlik at 56 after 4. Pavlik is perfect so far this game on the head pin. A stark contrast to the first game. And Pavlik fires to the right of the head pin, gets a decent mix of a 7 drop. 1, 2, 4 on the deck with no wood. Pavlik just has to run down the 1, 2, and 4 by connecting with the 1, 2 pocket. Pavlik fires. He's on the 2, 4 and leaves the 1. No mark for Donovan Pavlik. And he'll fire on the head pin, but he'll miss to the right for 65 after 5 for Donovan Pavlik. That will be his half of the first half of the second game. Great opening positioning, especially those 2 spares and 2 9 fills followed by a 10 box. That was a great place for Donovan Pavlik to land after that first game where he finished with a 95. Steve Kelly will be returning to the approaches on lane 8 to start out the second game now. Steve Kelly had a 115 in the first game. Kelly fires. He's on the 1, 2 pocket. He drops 7. Leaves the 9, 10, and the 6 on the deck. The right side candlepin corner. Kelly fires on the triangle and will take the triangle for a spare. Kelly is also on the board with a spare in the first. 10 after 1 and a bonus. In the past 5 matches, Steve Kelly has taken 47 points, averaging 9.4 per match, with 15 strikes, 79 spares, and 15 tens across those 5 matches. And Steve Kelly punches hard down the center. That's a 3-pin spread eagle and a 3 fill, so that's 13 after 1 for Steve Kelly. And Kelly fires on the left side of the eagle and leaves the right side plus a sleeper. That's the 8, the 10, the 3, and the 6. Kelly fires for the 10 box, and he'll take everything out for a 10 box. That's 23 after 2 for Steve Kelly. Steve Kelly has 3 matches this season totaling at or over 600, and 4 out of 5 matches totaling 550 or higher. He has 4 out of 5 matches with double-digit victories. He's on the 1, 3 pocket, and it takes everything out for a strike. The 2-pin kind of gets slid quite a ways before it finally fell, but that's a strike for Steve Kelly. That's 33 and a bonus after 3. Lanes 7 and 8 have definitely yielded some interesting pin action today so far, with pins that seemingly don't fall when they should, or do fall when they seemingly shouldn't. Kelly's opening ball. It's a 7 drop on the triangle. Center triangle, 5, 8, 9 with a piece of wood. Kelly fires, and the ball hits the cap of the wood, and unfortunately everything gets deflected. So that's going to be a 7 fill on the strike for Steve Kelly. And remedial third box, third ball, he'll take the 8 pin and leave the 5 and the 9 for an 8 box. That puts him at 48 after 4. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 56 after 4. Steve Kelly's home house is at Leda Lanes. So despite being the away bowler, he also bowls out of Leda Lanes. That's just how the scheduling works in the ACST some days. And Kelly's on the head pin and fires. He leaves the 2, the 5, and the 8 on the deck. again on the head pin. Kelly 5 for 5 on the head pin so far this game. And Kelly plays the 3-pin array, but leaves the 5. It was on the object pin, but somehow everything danced around the 5. And Kelly will take the last pin out for a 10 box. That puts him at 58 after 5. Chasing Donovan Pavlik 65 at the same point in the game. Those scores are being entered in now. And Donovan Pavlik will start off immediately on the head pin. He's left with a split, an 8 drop. The 7 and the 9 are on the deck. And he's contemplating the shot. There's some wood to the right of the 9 pin. Sort of this like T-shaped wood. And that's the one he's going to well, it seemed like that was what he was going to play, but he seemed to have misfired a bit. He takes the 9 and leaves the 7. Pavlik fires, but a piece of wood deflects the ball. It's going to be a 9 box for Donovan Pavlik. That's 74 in 6. And here's a recap of the scores in case you missed it. One strike for Steve Kelly, 0 strikes for Donovan Pavlik. Steve Kelly has 5 spares, Pavlik has 2. Pavlik fires on the 1-3 pocket. Bit of a splash hit, but the pins fall late. He leaves the 7 on the deck. It's a 9 drop after all is said and done. And that's a spare for Donovan Pavlik, a layup spare with a piece of wood perpendicular to the 7 pin. That puts him at 84 and 7 plus a bonus. Donovan Pavlik's in his past 5 matches, he's taken 34 points, averaging 6.8 per match. And that's Donovan Pavlik on the head pin, and that's a fast strike for Donovan Pavlik. The 9 pin was the last to fall. Donovan Pavlik has 1 match over 600 this season, and 3 matches over 550 this season. He has 2 matches with double-digit wins, 1 match that was a shutout, 14-0. He has 2 matches without double-digit wins. His longest streak of strings at or over 100 has been 9 so far this season. His longest streak of matches at or over 550 has been 3 this season, and his longest winning streak, which is 7 points or greater per match, has been 1 so far. Although it's still early for Donovan Pavlik, he hasn't thrown a lot of matches, or hasn't rolled a lot of matches yet. So those stats could change at any point. That's 7 drop for Donovan Pavlik so far. It was the 3-6-7. He connected with a 3-6, but the 7 did not fall. But he'll clean up for a 10 box. That will put him at 123 in the 9th, with 1 box to go. Donovan Pavlik with a great course correction after that first game. That was a 95. He's on the board with 1 strike. Both bowlers 1 strike apiece. And Pavlik's final opening pitch of the 2nd game is on the head pin once again. But my goodness, he's left with a 7-10, 4-5-6. Some of these pocket shots just aren't really doing much for our bowlers right now. And Pavlik will punch the 7, leaving the 4-5-6-10. Pavlik will sail through the void, and he'll take a 6 box. He'll finish with a 129 in the 2nd game. That's a 2-game total of 224. He's 65% on the head pin, 13 for 20. He has 7 splits, though. He has raked in 37 additional bonus pins in terms of mark fills, averaging 9.3 per mark. Steve Kelly down by 71 in the game and 51 in the match. Now aims to respond on lane 7 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Thank you for watching this Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour match. I'm Steve Kelly on the call, recording after the fact. And that's Steve Kelly of the past, bowling on lane 7 right now. He fires. He's on the head pin, a full shot. It's a 6 drop, and a split, the 7-10-4-2. Kelly beans the 4 and leaves the 2-7-10. No wood to help him. No mark. Kelly fires on the 2-pin, leaves the 7 and the 10. That's an 8 box for Steve Kelly. That puts him at 66 after 6. Steve Kelly this game has been perfect on the head pin, 6 for 6. Only 2 of those 6 head pin shots have been splits. Kelly's on the 1-2 pocket this time, once again on the head pin. Drops 7. And it's a right side triangle, the 5-6-3, with a piece of wood behind the 5 and the 6. Kelly fires for the spare bid, and he'll get it. He connects with the 3 and the 6, taking the 5 with it. That is 76 and a bonus in the 7th for Steve Kelly. Steve Kelly's split average per match is 13.2. And Steve Kelly is on the head pin once again. That's a split. He leaves the 7-10-5. Steve Kelly's head pin average per match is 30.4 for 50. Kelly fires with a piece of wood in front of the 5, 7, and 8, and it deflects over. Takes the 7, leaves everything else. Frustrating shot, frustrating action. Kelly fires with an 8 box minimum and a 10 box maximum. It will be a 10 for 93 and 8 for Steve Kelly. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 113 in the 8th. It's a difference of 20 at this point between our two bowlers. Donovan Pavlik is in the lead in this game. Steve Kelly's longest streak of strings at or over 100 this season has been 15. Kelly is on the head pin, and wow, can you believe that shot? That is a head pin shot, and Donovan Pavlik can't believe it either because we saw this shot. We don't see this shot often. On a pocket shot, you're left with a 7, 8, 9, 10, 4, 6. Kelly plays the left side, leaves the right side. One of those shots that, in a different universe, it definitely would have likely been a strike, but here, not so much. Kelly plays the right side triangle for a 10 box. He'll leave 1 pin for a 9 box. That puts him at 102 after 9. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 123 after 9. With 1 to go, it's looking ever increasingly difficult for Steve Kelly to take the second game here. And Kelly fires, and he's on the head pin. That's a perfect game of head pin shots, and it's nearly a strike. The 5 pin is slanted. It's literally leaning. Donovan Pavlik commenting on that, and you can see it yourself. Steve Kelly jumps to see if it'll fall. It's unbelievable how much that pin is leaning, and yet it's not falling. Just the leaning tower of Pinza down there. So it seems like it won't fall. It won't be a very, very, very late strike. Steve Kelly will have to shoot at for a spare. But unfortunately, that's effectively going to be the second game for Donovan Pavlik. Steve Kelly will take a spare. He's at 112 and a bonus in the 10th. A 10 fill will get him to 122, but that won't be enough to take Donovan Pavlik's 129. Kelly fires final ball of the second game, and it will be a 6 fill. That will put Steve Kelly at 118 for a 2-game total of 233 versus Donovan Pavlik's 2-game total of 224 with his 129 in the second game. Steve Kelly threw a perfect game of headpin shots this second game, and only 4 of those 10 headpin shots have been splits. So we're going to move on to the third game now, and we will begin immediately with Donovan Pavlik punching out the right side, 3-9 for a half Worcester. And Pavlik's second ball, unfortunately, it sails through the same hole that the first ball went into. or created more specifically.
Alright, get out. Get out.
Pavlik's third ball,
Harry.
he takes out everything but the 5 and the 10. At least it wasn't a 2 box. That was a very salvation-laden third ball. So it's 8 after 1 for Donovan Pavlik. He's currently 62% of the head pin today with 7 splits. Pavlik fires. He doesn't want to have another half Worcester situation. He doesn't. He connects with the 1-3 pocket. He drops 7. That's the 2, the 4, and the 8 on the deck. 3 pins clustered together with a piece of wood perpendicular to 2 of them. Pavlik should be able to take this, and he does. That's a mark in the second for Donovan Pavlik. That's 18 and a bonus after 2. Pavlik fires on the spare fill. It's a 7 drop and a split. It's a 3, 6, 7 on the deck. So it's 25 after 2 for Donovan Pavlik. And he'll fire on the object 2 pins, and a piece of wood rolls towards the 3, but it was behind it, so it doesn't take it out. For a 9 or 10 box, Pavlik will just skate by the 3 pin, and he'll take a 9 box for 34 after 3. In case you missed it, Donovan Pavlik threw a 95 and then a 129 in the first and second games, respectively. And he's currently working on the 4th frame of the 3rd game of this 5-game series of the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. It's a season-long traveling league where bowlers have home and away games. They have their home bowling alley, and then they will travel to wherever they're scheduled to go.
Oh, nice bid.
Or they'll play home games, and sometimes both bowlers, their home house is where they are scheduled to bowl. So, but one bowler is always the away bowler, no matter what. But anyways, that's a spare for Donovan Pavlik. He's at 44 and a bonus after 4. With 1 to go before he sits, he's currently at 1 strike and 5 spares, 63% head pin percentage as of right now, with 8 splits to those 15 head pin shots. Pavlik filling a spare, working on a spare right here on the 1-3 pocket. It was a good head pin shot. He drops 6. That's the 7-8-5-2. 75-2 with 2 pieces of wood in front of the 7. Largely not in the picture, but if there's sidewall action, it could be affected. But Donovan Pavlik will just miss the object pin to the right a little bit. He's left with the 2 and the 7 on the deck. 50 after 4 for Donovan Pavlik. And with that 9 box, he'll finish the first half of the 3rd game with 59. A 2 spare 59 for Donovan Pavlik. He had 3 head pin shots and 2 splits in that half. He's taken in 50 additional bonus pins in terms of mark fills, averaging 8.3 per mark. Now Steve Kelly looks to respond on lane 8 here at the start of the 3rd, the top of the 3rd game. Great to have you along with us. I hope you're enjoying this broadcast. If you want to see more, check out our social media channels in the Candlepin Bowling multiverse, such as Candlepin Bowling Network. There's Candlepin Chat on Facebook. Check out Candlepin Corner on YouTube, as well as 3 Ball Spare on YouTube. And we'll go over some other social media channels in a little bit here. That's Steve Kelly dropping 6, ending the headpin streak he had in the previous game, 10 in a row. That's the right side 4 horsemen. And Steve Kelly almost runs down the 4 horsemen, takes the 1, the 3, and the 6, but the 10 does not go. The ball was in the right place, but just didn't kick over to the 10. Kelly fires on the 10, and we'll take the 10 for a 10 box. That's 10 after 1 for Steve Kelly. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 8 after 1. Steve Kelly is the number 9th high class average of 118.05. Steve Kelly has bowled only 5 matches out of the 18 matches in the regular season. Kelly fires to the right of the head pin. Pins are still mixing, but it's going to be a 4 drop. Left half of the deck still standing. Kelly fires on the head pin a little bit too full this time. Leaves the 2, the 4, and the 7 on the deck for a 10-box opportunity. 7 box guaranteed. Kelly fires, runs down the last 3 for a 10-box. His third 10-box in a row. Or excuse me, second 10-box in a row for 20 after 2. Steve Kelly's perfect box percentage is 61%, and when you get a lot of 10 boxes in addition to spares and strikes, it contributes to that statistic. Kelly on lane 8 on the head pin this time. It's going to be a split, the 7-8-5. No wood to help him. We've seen a lot of shots like this today where it's just a lot of these awkward splits with not a lot of dead wood to help. Kelly fires on the 5 and the 8, but leaves the 7. More or less all you could really do with that shot, unless you want to try a trick shot on the 5 pin, kicking over the 7. It's kind of risky. See, Kelly just barely stays on the left side of the edge for a 10 box. That's 3 10s in a row for Steve Kelly. That's 30 after 3. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 34 after 3. Kelly on lane 8. He's off to the left of the head pin this time, just ever so slightly. Drops 5. The 1, 3, 6, 7, 8 are on the deck. Steve Kelly so far is 18 for 24 on the head pin and 12 for 24 on splits. Kelly doesn't get a mark, and on third ball he fires a little bit too full, leaves the 6 and the 7 for an 8 box. That puts Steve Kelly at 38 after 4. Steve Kelly has 2971 seasonal total pins, compared to Donovan Pavlik's 2289 seasonal total pins, though Steve Kelly has bowled one more match than Donovan Pavlik. And Steve Kelly drops 7, not on the head pin this time, but it's the 1, 2, 10. And the way those pins are clustered and the wood is around it, I think that could be a bit of a layup shot. Kelly fires on it, and everything does go just as expected. That's a spare for Steve Kelly. That's 48 and a bonus after 5. Compare that to 59 after 5 for Donovan Pavlik. So here's the recap of the scores again. Both bowlers have 1 strike apiece. Steve Kelly has 8 spares. Donovan Pavlik has 5. Donovan Pavlik starts off very quickly. Off to the right of the head pin, drops 5. The 1, 2, 4, 7, 10 are on the deck. And he fires on the left side 4 horsemen to try to run them down, but he only takes 3 of the 4, leaving the 7 and the 10 pins on the deck. Off lane 7 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on this Saturday morning. We also have another ACST match going on to the left of us. That's Chase Abramczyk and Paul Kravitz. Had a nice chat with Paul Kravitz after this match. I know I'm kind of rearranging time a little bit here, but I'm just talking about camera setups and editing setups and how we do the live stream setups, and he's just getting into it in terms of setting up things with laptops and cameras, and I was just going over with him some of the trials and tribulations I went through with getting all of that set up. Donovan Pavlik drops 6 on the head pin. The 9, 10, 3, 6 for the spare, and he will take the spare. That's 78 and a bonus for Donovan Pavlik. Pavlik with a 95 in the first game and a 129 in the second game. He has 3 marks this game, 78 and a bonus right now. In the 7th box. To complete the 7th box, he fires. He's on the head pin, and wow, my goodness! Remember this shot?
Yeah.
Did you see this? Did you see this? In case you missed it, here it is again. Donovan Pavlik on the pocket, just like Steve Kelly, is left with a 7, 8, 9, 10, 4, 6. play a lottery ticket or something, because we just saw this shot twice in a row in the same match. Donovan Pavlik fires on the 7 pin and leaves everything else. And Pavlik for the 10 box, he'll take a few more out. He'll get a 7 out of it with a 4 fill. That puts him at 82 in 7 and 89 in 8. Lanes 7 and 8 were where Leda's Mass Holes bowled a playoff match in the International Candlepin Men's Worlds Tournament. And it was also the lanes where we ultimately, I believe, did eventually get knocked out.
Nice ball. Take it.
But we did survive into the playoffs, so that was nice. Donovan Pavlik for the spare bid, he leaves 1 on the deck. That's the 6 pin. For a 10 box, he shoots, and he'll get it for a 10 box. With that 10 box, he is at 99 and 9. 1 strike, 6 spares, 62% head pin completion percentage, 18 for 29, 54 additional bonus pins. Pavlik fires on the 1-2 pocket. He drops 7, leaving the right side candlepin corner the 9-10-6. Right side triangle. Sometimes it's harder than it looks to get, especially with that wood. But Pavlik is a little bit off target there. He connects with the 9 and leaves everything else. Pavlik fires for the 10 box. He'll take the 6 and the 10 out for a 10 box, and he'll finish game 3 with a 109 for a 3-game total of 333 for Donovan Pavlik. A 3-mark 109. A 3-mark 109 for Donovan Pavlik. It's a bit of a somewhat disappointing game compared to the previous game, which was 129, but we'll see how Steve Kelly can respond. Steve Kelly coming onto the deck off after a 48 half. And the 5th box was a spare, so it's 48 plus a bonus, whatever this next ball ends up being. Kelly fires the bonus ball on the head pin. And it's a split. It's a 7 fill. That puts him at 55 after 5. It's the 8-9-6 on the deck. And this shot will be difficult. Steve Kelly plays the right side. He'll just take 2 and leave 1. But he could pin it out for 10 box. The 8 pin is left with a piece of wood in front of it. Kelly plays the wood and will take a 10 box. And that's 65 after 6 for Steve Kelly after all said and done. With 4 boxes to go here in the 3rd game. Over the halfway point. And Steve Kelly is on the head pin. And it's another split. Yet another split. That's the 4 and the 10 on the deck. Late falling 8 drop. These kind of splits have been really difficult for Steve Kelly today. Unusually high amount. And Steve Kelly plays the wood, but the wood isn't connected to anything, so no pins fall. Kelly on the 4-10. He'll take the 4 and leave the 10 for a 9 box. That will put him at 74 after 7. Hope you're enjoying this Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour match. This is a season-long series of one-on-one candlepin bowling matches between challengers organized into classes and divisions competing for playoff contention. It's a little bit like the NFL. Steve Kelly's on the head pin with a banana split. That's the 7-10-4-6. 3rd head pin shot in a row and 3rd split in a row for Steve Kelly. This will be a difficult shot to get a spare out of. Usually you just have to spend 2 balls to take the left or the right, but Steve Kelly attempts to play the wood, but the wood does not in any way play back. Kelly left to choose a side of the banana split. He chooses the right and leaves the left. That's an 8 box for Steve Kelly. That puts him at 82 after 8. 2 boxes to go before we conclude the third game. Donovan Pavlik has a 3-game total of 333. And Steve Kelly is on the head pin that time. No split that time either. He's left with the 5 and the 9, but there's a piece of wood in front of the 5 and the 9. And that's a bit of a worrisome angle and a worrisome distance from the pins. It could deflect the ball. Kelly plays it, and just as expected, it deflects out of play. It's one of those things in candlepin bowling. If you see a piece of deadwood in front of object pins like that, it is never guaranteed that it's going to be a mark. Kelly fires, and just like that, the ball was right on target, but he missed the second and got the third, unfortunately. No fault of his own, it was more the deadwood. So that's a 10 box for Steve Kelly. He's at 92 after 9. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 99 after 9. It's a difference of 7 between our two bowlers at this point in the game. Kelly fires. A bit of a bouncy ball, but it is on the head pin, and it's going to be a 7 drop. Steve Kelly in the second half of this game went perfect, lights out on the head pin this half. 5 head pin shots and 3 splits. That's the 2-4-7 on the deck with wood. Steve Kelly fires, and everything goes eventually. The 4-pin thought long and hard about it. Almost stayed up, but fell at the very last second. That's a spare for Steve Kelly. That's 102 and a bonus in the 10th. He has to get to 109 to tie. And 110 or higher to take 2 points. So the benchmark is a 7 fill or greater. Kelly fires, hoping it's a 7 fill, a little off target to the left of the head pin. And frustrated with that shot, he took a 6 fill. So the third game will go to Donovan Pavlik, 109 to Steve Kelly's 108. Steve Kelly has a 3-game total of 341 versus Donovan Pavlik's 333 3-game total. At this point in the match, Donovan Pavlik is 19 for 30 on the head pin with 10 splits. Steve Kelly is 23 for 30 with 15 splits.
All right. Back at it.
We now advance to the 4th game here in our 5-game series match today on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. This is Steve Kelly versus Donovan Pavlik. And Donovan Pavlik punches out 2 pins, the 6 and the 9 on his first ball. Second ball is on the head pin as a course correction, but he leaves 3 pins on the deck. That's the 2, the 4, and the 10 with no wood, and he punches the 2 and leaves the 8. Punches the 2, leaves 2 for an 8 box after 1 for Donovan Pavlik. Donovan Pavlik, when he's at home, his average is 122.2, and he's a little off target on that first ball, second one in a row now. And the second ball, a little bit better, but he leaves 2 pins on the deck. He leaves the 1 and the 9. For an 8, 9, or 10 box, Pavlik fires on the head pin a little bit too hard and too full. It jumps over everything else, leaves the 9 pin for a 9 box. That's 17 after 2 for Donovan Pavlik. This is only Donovan Pavlik's second home match this season so far. He's played 3 away, and in the 1 home match he played, he went 14-0, so he had a shutout victory. And he's on the 1-3 pocket. He drops 6. He leaves the 7, the 4, the 5, and the 2 on the deck. It's the left side inverted Verizon checkmark. Donovan Pavlik, in particular, his superlatives have to do with spares, and there's another spare for Pavlik. He's number 9th highest average spare fill in the ACST, as well as the number 3 ACST North spare fill, as well as the number 7th Class A average spare fill at 6.76 for all 3 of those statistics. Pavlik's on the head pin with a banana split. The 7-10-4-6 on the deck. That's a 6 fill on his spare. That puts him at 33 after 3. Donovan Pavlik has had 46 spares in his past few matches, averaging 9.2 for a match. And he'll take the left side and leave the right side. It's about the best you can do with a banana split. It's kind of like a spread eagle type situation where you got to pick one half and then the other half. And he'll take a 9 box after all said and done. That's 42 after 4 for Donovan Pavlik. Folks, if you enjoy this match and want to see more, I implore you to check out the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour on Facebook. That's where all of these matches are posted, and they're streamed there first most of the time. And there's almost always something going on that page, so be sure to check it out on Facebook, the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. And that's on a headpin shot, another banana split for Donovan Pavlik. And he sails through the void on the second ball, no mark. And at the moment, nope, it seemed like there was a slow ball return, but of course it's one of those things where the second you go to notify someone at the front desk, that's when the ball return starts working. Happens in the world of IT, and it happens in bowling, apparently. That's an 8 box for Donovan. He'll take 50 after 5. 1 mark in this half. That's a 3.5 game total of 383 for Donovan Pavlik. 1 strike, 7 spares, 22 headpin shots, 63% completion percentage. 12 splits of those 22 headpin shots, 34% split percentage. And in terms of the fills, Donovan Pavlik has totaled 60, averaging 7.5 per mark. That is the current situation for Donovan Pavlik this match. Steve Kelly now returns to lane 8 to bowl his first half of the 4th game here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, Class A North. Steve Kelly at Donovan Pavlik. Again, it's a 5-string match format. You can get up to 14 points per match, 2 points per string, 4 for total pinfall. Ties split points in terms of both game and pinfall. So if you tie in a string, you get 1 point. If you tie in the total pinfall, you get 2 points. They're divvied up. That's Steve Kelly on the headpin with a spread eagle. Yet another headpin shot and a spread eagle for Steve Kelly. It's the 4-pin spread eagle, the traditional one. And Steve Kelly fires to the left of the eagle's wings, and he takes out the 2 and the 4, but leaves the 7, the 10, the 3, and the 6. Shooting for a 10 box. Playing the right half is ideal. And he does. He takes out the 3 on the right half, but the left 7-pin stays on the deck for a 9 box. That's 9 after 1 for Steve Kelly. Steve Kelly 24 for 31 in the headpin. So far. And we're just waiting on that slow ball return we were just discussing earlier. Slow, but still functional. And Steve Kelly on lane 8. On the headpin that time. Drops 9. Leaves the 6 on the deck. Not a split that time. Finally breaks the curse there. Single pin spare opportunity, and he'll take the 6 for a spare. That's 19 and a bonus after 2 for Steve Kelly. Now the windup. And the pitch. This is a bonus ball. It's to the left of the headpin. And it will be a late falling 6 drop. Folks, everyone involved here, from the bowlers to the staff you cannot see, all appreciate your viewership and interest in the world of Candlepin bowling. If you live in the area or are willing to make the pilgrimage, the Candlepin bowling community would absolutely appreciate your interest and visitation. Check out candlepin.org and click Go Bowling to find your nearest center if you would like to give this unique regional sport a try. Steve Kelly can't convert the mark. He's left with the 1 and the 7 on the deck. He'll take the head pin, but leave the 7 for a 9 box. That's 34 after 3 for Steve Kelly. Up by 1 over Donovan Pavlik's 33 after 3 with his spare and fill of 6. 2 boxes to go before we say hello to Donovan Pavlik again. Steve Kelly in the meantime, he fires. First ball of the 4th frame on the head pin. And it's a left side setback, the 5 and the 7. Third head pin shot and second split of this game. Kelly fires on the 5 and takes the 5, but the 7 is unharmed, so no mark. It's one of those shots where sometimes you just have to cut your losses and just decide if you want to take the pins or not. Steve Kelly just narrowly misses the 7 for a 9 box. That puts him at 43 after 4. 26 for 34 in the head pins, 17 for 34 for the splits. Steve Kelly has so far a 76% head pin shot percentage. And Kelly fires on the 1-2 pocket. That's another head pin shot, but it's a 6 drop and a split. That's the 7, 10, 3, and 6. Bunch of wood around it, but not really all that helpful. Maybe you could argue for the piece of wood in front of the 3 and the 6, but it's kind of a non-factor. But Steve Kelly will play it, though, and to leave the 3 on the deck. So no mark, shooting for a 10 box, just the 3 pin. The 3 pin goes, that will be a 10 box for Steve Kelly. That puts him at 53 after 5 with that 10 box. So a single mark half, 3 9s and a 10, other than that spare. Puts Steve Kelly at 53 after 5 compared to Donovan Pavlik's 50 after 5. Donovan Pavlik fires, and that's a 5 drop. He's not on the head pin, but he leaves the 4 horseman left side and the 9 pin. Second ball takes the 4. No mark for Donovan Pavlik. Here's your score update in case you missed it. Donovan Pavlik is very eager to bowl today, so we're just trying to sneak the full screen scoreboard in whenever we can, right when he begins bowling. And that will be a 7 for Donovan Pavlik. That's 57 after 6. Donovan Pavlik so far has had 3 head pin shots and 2 splits this game. Pavlik on lane 7 fires. He's on the head pin. That was a nice delivery. And it's a 7 drop. The 7, 10, 4. Difficult spare conversion. Donovan will take the left side and leave the right side. Be a 9 or 10 box on the 10 pin. And Donovan Pavlik will take a 9. That will put him at 66 in the 7th box. In case you're new to this sport, candlepin bowling is a sport in which a player rolls a ball down a lane in an attempt to knock down up to 10 pins in a frame, also known as a box in the candlepin bowling vocabulary. And that's Donovan Pavlik on the head pin with a split. That's the 4, 2, 10 down there on lane 7. In candlepin bowling, there are 3 balls per frame as opposed to 10 pins 2. And that's a spare for Donovan Pavlik. 76 and a bonus in the 8th. In candlepin bowling, you get a 3rd chance to knock down all the pins, and you get what is resulting in a 10 box if you end up on the 3rd box and you knock down all the pins. And Donovan Pavlik's to the left of the head pin. He drops 6. That's the 1, 3, 7, 10. That's a 6 fill. That puts him at 82 after 8. And Pavlik fires on the head pin and only gets the 1 and the 3, leaves the 7 and the 10. And for the 10 box. That third ball, Pavlik connects with the 10, leaves the 7 for a 9 box. That puts him at 91 after 9. With 1 to go. Pavlik is currently at a match total of 424. Donovan Pavlik fires. He's on the 1-3 pocket, and will the last pin fall? The last pin will fall. The 5 pin was thinking about it, but it did go. He's at 101 and a bonus in the 10th. Salvaging a potentially low-scoring game for Donovan Pavlik, but since he has that strike, he now has the opportunity. He has 2 balls to throw here for the bonus fill. He's currently totaling 66 in bonus pins, averaging 6.6 per mark, so we'll see what he can do here to maintain that benchmark. Pavlik's on the pocket, and he'll drop 8 so far. He's left with the 4 and the 6. Piece of wood across the 6. Slightly at an angle, but mostly flat. Pavlik will play that wood, but he'll leave the 4, and that's a 9 fill after all said and done. He'll finish the 4th game with a 110 and a 4-game total of 443. Pavlik with 25 headpin shots, a 63% completion percentage, 14 splits, and 35% of his headpin shots have been splits so far. Or excuse me, 35% of all the total boxes have been splits. But it is contingent on the headpin being down, so that percentage is a little bit skewed. The fill totals, he's now up to 75, averaging 7.5, so he just upped his average a little bit on that, which is always good. Steve Kelly will now step up to the approaches of Lane 7 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire to complete his second half of the 4th game. And this match, again, is being bowled next to another ACST match, so in an attempt to exercise bowler courtesy, Steve Kelly just hesitated a little bit there to wait for Paul Kravitz to finish his frame. It's one of those situations where you don't technically have to do it, but it's just one of those things where you just get into a rhythm. It's just nice to not step on each other's toes in that way. Steve Kelly's on the headpin and drops 8. That's the 5 and the 8 on the deck. Steve Kelly has 5 headpin shots this game so far, 5 for 6. The third frame was the only one without a headpin shot so far. And Steve Kelly attempts to negotiate a spare, but the ball drifts to the left and only takes the 8 and leaves the 5. This spare opportunity there. Kelly fires, bouncy ball, but it stays on target, takes out the 5 for a 10 box. That's 63 after 6 for Steve Kelly. With 4 boxes to go, he's 28 for 36 on the headpin and 18 for 36 on splits. Again, 78% headpin percentage for Steve Kelly today. 1 strike, 12 spares. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 2 strikes and 8 spares at the end of the 4th game. Kelly fires, and he's on the headpin, but the headpin does get taken out in proxy. 8 drop, 4-7 on the deck for a spare bid. Just a piece of wood to the left of the 4-pin. And Steve Kelly will take that out for a spare. That's 73 and a bonus in the 7th. This next ball will be a bonus ball. Extra points on the spare for Steve Kelly, and he is just off target. The ball bounces a little bit once again, and he'll only take 3 on that fill. That puts him at 76 after 7. It was not a headpin shot, needless to say. Second ball is an overcorrection to the right. He leaves the 1 and the 2 on the deck for a 10-box shot. He fires for the 10 box, and he will connect with the last 2 remaining pins and pin it out for a 10 box with a good out in the 8th for 86. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 82 at the equivalent point in the game. Still a very competitive match. It's only a difference of a few pins, really, when you boil it down to the fills and the totals and all of that. Kelly fires on the head pin this time. Connects with the intended target and drops a late falling 9. Single pin spare opportunity with wood. Appears to be the 8 pin on the deck in the back row with a bunch of wood all around it, a 3-pin lumberyard. One piece of wood just very kindly up against it diagonally, and Steve Kelly will play that with the gap in the pieces of dead wood down at the end of the deck. He'll take a spare. That's 96 and a bonus after 9. 96 and a bonus after 9 compared to 91 for Donovan Pavlik in the 9th frame. This next fill will be big. Kelly fires. It's a ball that connects with the 3-pin, but it very generously takes out 8 pins. The 1 and the 2 are left on the deck. Kelly is 29 for 40 on the head pin as of the end of this game. And Kelly just misses off to the left, connects with the 2, leaves the 1. But the 4th game will go in Steve Kelly's favor with that 10 box. He'll finish with a 114 in the 4th for a 4-game total of 455 for Steve Kelly. Donovan Pavlik, again, has a 4-game total of 443. Steve Kelly will take the 4th game, 114 to Donovan Pavlik's 110. Steve Kelly currently at 73% head pins. Donovan Pavlik, though, 63%. So both bowlers are really reaching their mark in terms of target, head pin, first ball success rates. But the problem is just splits at this point. Steve Kelly has 18 splits at this point, and Donovan Pavlik has 14. Both bowlers have equal fill totals of 75, but Donovan Pavlik is averaging higher at 7.5 compared to Steve Kelly's 5.8. Just a little context for you as we move here into the 5th and final game here tonight at the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Donovan Pavlik will waste no time and start right out. He's on the head pin, drops 7. It's an inverse triangle. It is the 8 pin, the 4 pin, and the 5 pin with a piece of flat wood in front of it, slightly off center. And he oddly plays the wood to the right of all of that, and I don't know if that was intentional, but he leaves 1 pin on the deck, no mark for Donovan Pavlik. And Donovan Pavlik will take a 10 box in the first, 10 after 1. And that's where we stand. One of the coolest things about candlepin bowling is that it's a more accessible game compared to 10-pin bowling. And the reason being is, for one, the bowling balls are significantly smaller and lighter, lessening strength and age requirements by a significant margin. And that's nearly a strike bid for Donovan Pavlik. That was an explosive splash of a first ball on the head pin. He's left with the 7 pin, though. The 7 pin seems to be a common thread in terms of pins that remain standing, but he'll take that spare, though. That's 20 and a bonus after 2 for Donovan Pavlik. But yes, candlepin bowling is a great sport to play for folks of nearly any age. The flexibility of the sport's physical requirements allow a wide variety of accessibility. Far less back pain than 10-pin bowling, room for breaks and rest in between turns, and camaraderie among friendly competition, something one does not often see in other sports. And that's Donovan Pavlik filling his spare with 5 to the right of the head pin. That puts him at 25 after 2. And second ball, it's a quick draw fire, but it's a little off target to the left of the head pin this time. He's got the 1, the 7, and the 9 to deal with. And he'll connect with the head pin, but he'll leave the 9 pin after all said and done for a 9 box. That will put him at 34 after 3. Donovan Pavlik, 2 for 3 on the head pin so far this game. And for those who enjoy predictable, repetitive, routine-oriented actions and tasks, I would highly recommend candlepin bowling, as it has a somewhat regimented and structural framework to it. I certainly enjoy the dopamine effect it grants when I bowl, with particular attention to the potential of throwing a blockbuster and record-breaking game, by the way of which has never been truly done in candlepin bowling. A 300 has never been rolled. along with the thrill of mentally calculating how many marks it can throw and how much of a score it can efficiently compact into a small array of frames. You've seen it in this match. It can get exciting. Donovan Pavlik, meanwhile, is fighting for another mark, but he leaves 1 pin on the deck. So he's shooting for a 10 box. That's the 8th pin on the deck. And he fires and is a little bit off. Takes a 9 box, 43 after 4 for Mr. Pavlik. With 1 to go before he sits. Candlepin bowling was first played in around 1880 in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was thought to have been developed by a Justin Pop White, owner of a billiards and bowling hall, allegedly known as Worcester 10-Pin Billiard and Pool Hall on 37 Pearl Street in Worcester, Massachusetts. That's Donovan Pavlik, a little full on the head pin, a spread eagle minus the 2, the 4, 6, 3, 7, 10, and he'll connect with the 3 to convert the broken eagle into a banana split. He's looking at a 6 box minimum, and he'll take 2 more out to make that an 8 box. That will finish Donovan Pavlik at 51 for the final first half of this match. A 1 mark 51 with a spare and a 10. Currently at 29 for 45 on the head pin, 64%. 16 splits. It's just, the splits have been gnarly this match, certainly. So we'll say hello to Steve Kelly 1 more time. This will be the final first half of the match for either bowler. Steve Kelly up to this point has been 29 for 40 on the head pin. And the reason I keep harping on the head pin is because it's sort of a statistical fact that bowlers who connect with the head pin more often generally score higher. It means their accuracy is better on the first ball and gives them a higher chance of getting leaves that result in spares or just outright strikes. Anyway, Steve Kelly is just a little bit off of the head pin that time. That's a 6 drop. That's the 1, 3, 9, 10 on the deck. And we'll see if this goes. Connect with a 1-3 pocket and it should go, but we'll see. And Steve Kelly was a little bit full on the head pin and the wood just kicked in the wrong way, leaving the 9 and the 10 unharmed on the deck of lane 8. At Kegler's Den in Leda Lanes, there's a plaque on the wall that reads, quote, "During the Middle Ages, various forms of bowling became popular in European countries. The English bowled in the 1100s, and around the 1300s, the Germans rolled or threw stones at wooden clubs called kegels. Today, bowlers are still often called keglers." So after all said and done, Steve Kelly has 8 after 1 with that 8 box. The highest candlepin game that has ever been recorded officially has been 245. So, like I said, a 300 has never been rolled. Steve Kelly's on the head pin there with a 7 drop. That's a center triangle. That's the 7-8-5. With wood across it, should be easy. And Steve Kelly does make it easy. That's a spare. 18 and a bonus after 2 for Steve Kelly. The International Candlepin Bowling Association, or the ICBA, was founded on January 9th, 1986. The formation of the ICBA was prompted by a desire to unify the sport so bowlers would be able to be playing under the same conditions and rules no matter where they bowl. The ICBA is an umbrella organization that consists of delegates from state and provincial associations for both the United States as well as Canada. That's Steve Kelly with a 5 fill. Wasn't on the head pin. He's left with a 1, 2, 4, 8, and 10 pins. He fires and is off target once again. 10 pin falls late. Steve's protests caused the 10 pin to finally change its mind and fall. Now for the head pin for the 10 box, and Steve Kelly just misses it just by a little bit for a 9 box. That puts him at 32 after 3 with that 5 fill on the spare. Candlepin bowling uses 10 pins. Candlepin bowling uses pins that are taller, thinner, and don't have a bottom weight compared to 10 pin. Those pins are cylindrical, and they taper slightly at each end, making them more likely to bounce around when hit. The balls used in candlepin bowling are smaller, lighter, and they don't have holes for the fingers. They fit in the palm of your hand. Sort of like bocce balls. That's a 5 drop for Steve Kelly, not on the head pin once again. He's left with the right side 4 horsemen and the 8 pin. The 1, 3, 6, 8, 10. Kelly connects with the 3 and the 6. Still 3 pins left on the deck. Piece of wood facing outward from the head pin. Kelly plays the head pin, takes the 10, leaves the 8. That's a 9 box for Steve Kelly. That puts him at 41 after 4. Compare that to Donovan Pavlik's 43 after 4. Leda Lanes hosts many large tournaments throughout the year, including Luck of the Irish, the Halloween Scramble, and of course Ray's Easter Classic, that of which a 20-game tournament brings out some of the best bowlers from the US and Canada, sort of like an Easter Sunday Super Bowl. And Steve Kelly wasn't on the head pin there, had some work to do. Second ball was better. It was on the head pin, but he leaves the 5 and the 10 on the deck. Steve Kelly only has 1 head pin shot this half so far, and that was on the 2nd frame. No splits, though. And Kelly will take an 8 box. That will finish his final first half of in the 5th game, 49 compared to Donovan Pavlik's 51. That's where we stand here towards the winding down part of the match. Donovan Pavlik will now come up to lane 7 to throw some of the final frames of the day. 51 to 49, Pavlik to Kelly, respectively. Donovan Pavlik, he's not on the head pin. He drops a few. Again, there's the scores. Just trying to sneak him in between balls there. He's left with the 1, the 7, and the 9, and he'll take the 1, the 7, and the 9 for a spare. That's 61 and a bonus for Donovan Pavlik in the 6th. And Pavlik filling that spare. It's a bonus ball. He's off to the left of the head pin. And he drops 7, though. That's a 7 fill. Puts him at 68 after 6. The 1, the 5, and the 3 are left on the deck. And those pins are clustered together. We've seen a couple of these shots go earlier in the match. We'll see if this goes now. But he plays, well, I don't know if he plays it, but he hits a piece of wood on the cap and it deflects everything. All 3 pins don't go down. So he's shooting for a 10 box now with a 7 box guarantee. And Pavlik shoots at the 1 and the 3 and leaves the 5 for 77 in the 7th. So as we start to wind things down here, I want to say a couple thanks to a couple of people that make the ACST possible, such as our ACST League Commissioner Danny Finn, our Class A Treasurer Rich Lamone. Our ACST stats and numbers are crunched by Micah Imperato. I use these in the matches I stream, of course, then to say filler or provide B-roll stats and all that stuff. But, oh man, Donovan Pavlik, though, with that spare bit, it looks so good. And the sidewall action almost took the 6 pin. It even wiggled, but didn't go. That's going to be a 10 box for Donovan Pavlik. That will put him at 87 after 8. I'd like to also thank Brian Hebert for advice and direction. Always like to thank the staff at Leda Lanes and Nashua, New Hampshire. Of course, they're always accommodating, always awesome. And I always like to thank viewers like you for watching this. We wouldn't do this without you, for sure. We always thank you for supporting the Canopy Bowling community and coming back to watch these matches, striking, commenting, and subscribing, you know, the whole deal. And Donovan Pavlik, that's a 7 drop. That's the 3-6-7 on the deck.
Yeah, I'll message it to you.
Playing the 3-6 pocket is the operative way to take it out, or the left side of the 3-6 pocket. Regardless, Donovan Pavlik just got a spare. That's 97 and a fill in the 9th.
My recording software. I'm using
As
I don't know if you've heard of that, but
Steve Kelly of the past during the match is talking with Paul Kravitz about camera technologies or different cameras used to film matches in bowling. It's kind of a fun thing to nerd out about. But that's a 4 fill for Donovan Pavlik. He left the 1, the 5, the 3, the 6, the 9, and the 10 on the deck for 101 and 9. And Pavlik will hit the 1-3 pocket, but he'll leave the 5 pin, so he won't get a spare out of it. He stands for a 111 fifth and final game, and he will get a 111 with that 10 box. That will finish Donovan Pavlik with a 5-game total of 554 with that 111 fifth game. He bowled a 95, a 129, a 109, a 110, and a 111. So Pavlik finishes with a 62% head pin completion percentage, 31 for 50, and he had 18 splits. He totaled 91 in total fills, or bonus pins on fills, excuse me. He averaged 7.0 pins per mark on the fill. We'll now say hello to Steve Kelly to close out this final half of the final game at the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. So folks, I also want to thank you for watching this, and I hope this was a pleasant viewing experience for you. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more, I invite you to strike, comment, and subscribe to the multiverse of Candlepin Bowling, such as the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour page on Facebook, the Candlepin Chat group on Facebook, Candlepin Bowling Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, Candlepin Bowling on TikTok, Candlepin Corner on YouTube, Outrun the Bear on Facebook and Instagram. There's Alley Chat on YouTube. There's 3 Ball Spare on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch.tv. And Wolfman12395 on YouTube for uploads of classic Candlepin matches of yesteryear. The Candlepin Bowling channel on YouTube. The Ripping the Rack podcast on YouTube. The Approach podcast, Tony Levesque on YouTube. And Charlie Collins on TikTok. Did I miss anybody? Hope I didn't. If I did, let me know. So Steve Kelly threw his 10 there. That's 59 after 6. And again, some of these second balls just haven't gone. Or they've been just frustratingly leaving one pin or something. Steve Kelly's on the head pin there, but that's going to be a split, 7-10 after all is said and done. Steve Kelly currently 32 for 47 on the head pin today. 19 of those shots have been splits. Kelly on the 7-10. He fires. And he nearly gets the spare, and again, he's just beside himself because he played the wood correctly, and it looked like it was almost going to take the 10 pin out, but it didn't. Kelly fires on the 10. Should be good. That's a 10 box for Steve Kelly. That's 69 after 7. Three boxes to go before we finish everything out. And Kelly on the 1-3 pocket. It's the 2-4-7 on the deck. Headpin shot. Kelly's only had 4 headpin shots this game so far. And another ball deflected by the cap of a piece of wood. Always frustrating when that happens. It's one of those things you kind of can't really do a whole lot about. When it caps it, the cap of the wood can often really cause unpredictable results. That's an 8 box for Steve Kelly. That's 77 after 8, with 2 boxes to go before we're all done. And Kelly on the headpin. Not for lack of trying. He drops 6. He leaves the left side inverse check mark. The 7-4-5-2 on the deck. Piece of wood off to the right. Effectively a non-factor. Kelly fires on the operative pocket, and once again, it's almost a common theme these past few boxes. Just one pin hangs around and defeats the attempt of getting a spare. Kelly fires and misses the 7 pin. Frustrated with that one once again. That's a 9 box for Steve Kelly. That puts him at 86 after 9. 34 for 49 on the head pin. 19 splits. 1 box. Oh, yes, 1 box to go before we finish everything up. At this point, it's looking like Donovan Pavlik will be taking the 5th game. But the total is still up for grabs. It's still quite close. May come down to this. Has to be a spare. Steve Kelly's on the 1-8-10. He fires on the head pin, and a piece of wood comes to collect the final pin. It's one of those things where it almost looked like it wasn't going to go, but a piece of wood finally decided, hey, we gotta take care of this last one. That's a spare for Steve Kelly. He's at 96 and a bonus in the 10th. So Steve Kelly finishes the day 34 for 50 on the head pin with 19 splits. Donovan Pavlik finishes 31 for 50 on the head pin with 18 splits, and that's a 6 fill for Steve Kelly. He'll finish with a 102 fifth game. That will be a 5-game total of 557 for Steve Kelly, up by 3 over Donovan Pavlik's 5-game total of 554. So Steve Kelly will be taking the 4 points for grand total pinfall. So we should be just about done here in just a moment, as soon as Steve Kelly of the match keys in the scores. We'll be switching over to the final totals in just a moment. But long story short, Steve Kelly will be taking 8 points and Donovan Pavlik will be taking 6 points. So a somewhat evenly distributed point differential today, 8-6. It's not terrible. So both bowlers will be going home with some semblance of a decent amount of sense of accomplishments today. So it was truly a back-and-forth match today. Steve Kelly with taking the first and fourth games, Donovan Pavlik taking games 2, 3, and 5, but Steve Kelly took 4 points in the grand total pinfall. Again, your final score for the final time, 557 Steve Kelly, 554 Donovan Pavlik. Steve Kelly had 1 strike, Pavlik had 2, Kelly had 14 spares, Pavlik had 11. Kelly had a 68% head pin completion percentage, and Pavlik had a 62 head pin completion percentage. Anyways, that should just about do it from us at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. I've been Steve Kelly. Have a great one, everybody.